This will probably be the only audiobook that I get a chance to listen to this month, and that is American Fire, and it's by Monica Hesse. And it is a non-fictional account of arsonists who are plaguing the eastern shore of Virginia. I really enjoyed it, but by the end, the trial kind of got a little familiar because of how the judicial system treats certain people. But it is fascinating. If you're fascinated by why people commit crimes and anything like that, I think if you just love true crime, it's definitely a book to check out. I actually got the recommendations from the Stacks podcast. They were talking about how excellent the book was, and so when I saw that I could get it on audio, I went ahead and picked it up. Speaking of podcasts, this month the two podcasts I want to talk about that I've been listening to are New York Times podcasts. The first one is 1619, and it's based off the articles that have been appearing in the New York Times all this year. And the 1619 project, it looks at what has happened with Africans in America since the first 20 landed in Virginia in 1619 to the current day. And the podcast is excellent. It takes into account what's in those articles, as well as putting interviews and soundtrack. It's just an excellent podcast to listen to if you're very much into African American history and current events. Excellent podcast to listen to. The second New York Times podcast I've been listening to is Still Processing, and it is a pop culture podcast. And recently they did a podcast breaking down J-Lo's career, and it was interesting because J-Lo's kind of like one of those. Yeah, she came up at the same time as I was becoming an adult, but I never realized how much of an impact on the culture she has. And so definitely take a listen to Still Processing, and you might learn something about pop culture. So I'm on my lunch break on my part-time job, and so I thought I would take a few minutes to discuss the books I have reviewed on NetGalley for the month. And the first one is a graphic novel, and that is Fights, and it is by Joel Christian Gill. And I've seen some of his earlier graphic novels before that I want to pick up. I think one of them is called Strange Fruit, and I think that he's also did The Talented 10th. So he's definitely an artist and an author that I have had my eye on. So when I got approved for this art, it was fascinating. So Fights is really a autobiography of his life, what he's gone through, and it kind of chronicles the different fights that he's had throughout his childhood to get to be the person that he is. The graphics on it are beautiful. You know, I love when they can, the illustrator has good skin tones for people. They look natural. The hair, everything looks good. The bubbles, you can follow the conversation very well. So I'm really enjoying that graphic novel, and I should finish it before my shift is over today, depending on how busy we are. The second book that I have had opportunity to read for NetGalley is a book called Rosa Parks in Her Own Words, and it is published by the University of Georgia Press. And the book, it shows photographs of Rosa Parks' actual handwriting, where she would write notes on the back of church programs, NAACP brochures, anything. And so it was neat to see that portion of history, just seeing her collections of what she used to write. It very much reminded me of Tupac's poetry book, The Rosa Grew from Concrete, because it has the who compiled that collection put the words into you know, into print, but you still had the photographs of where he would scribble it. So that's very much how this book was. It also gives each one of the photos of her actual handwriting gives where her life was at that point in history. And sometimes, you know, we often forget the actual price of what civil rights did to people's lives. The fact that she wasn't able to stay in Montgomery, she had to move to Detroit to get away from the hardships that were being thrust upon her family for the simple fact that she stood up to segregation. And I think that's a very important part of civil rights history that we don't need to lose, that people lost their lives and their livelihoods just so that everyone can have access to equal rights. I read those two as I was also reading along with the Count of Monte Cristo read along that Dee Dee from Brown Girl Reading is doing. I am so surprised that I actually like this monster of a book, and that the classic style of the writing and all that pulls me in. And I'm actually having trouble reading like another novel alongside with it, because I'm so wrapped up into wanting to know what Dante is doing and where he is in the story. And so I haven't been able to. I started several other things, and I'm like, you know what, this is going to have to wait till after November when we're done with the Count of Monte Cristo. But it was easier to do the graphic novel and the nonfiction. So I think that's what I'll do. You know, things that when I need to take a little break from the Count, I'll concentrate on reading nonfiction and graphic novels. So I hope everyone that's reading along with the Count of Monte Cristo is having a good time like I am, and surprised that a 1,000-page book would be of interest to you. I was able to get one more audiobook listened to, and that is Train Dreams by Denis Johnson. And it is actually a novella, which really almost sounded like a group of short stories. But it's one of those type of books that you read, listen to, and you're like, what in the world did I just listen to? What in the world did I just read? That is what happens in this book. And it's about a man that is out in the Midwest. I think it's like early 1900s through like the mid 1900s. And it's about his life, and it's a lonely life. And so you don't really know how much of this is real because of the title, which it says Train Dreams. And trains are not even the central focus of the story. His writing is good, but I'm questioning his subject matter, because something in his mind ain't right from the stuff he put over in this story. So if you read Denis Johnson, let me know what you think about him, because I don't think I want to read anything else. Not saying the dude can't write, but he got some sick stuff in there. But I hope that you've had a good a good October. My mind is already on November, because in November, Peter from Comfy Cozy Up, she's doing a journal challenge, and so I'm excited about doing that. Check out her channel. She has already put up a calendar of what the prompts are going to be for that, and so I'm looking forward to that. And you see, it's already on my mind. So thanks for watching, and happy reading.